We're not gonna, okay, look, I'm not gonna get like too intense about these books, even though I love them so much. I'm gonna try to not get super intense about them. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see what to say about my baby. So I just have nothing but good things to say about this one. Let's see what bad things people have to say about this one. Why am I doing this video? Hello everyone. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. So I woke up today and I guess I felt like getting my feelings hurt because I wanted to film the reading 1-star reviews of my favorite books video. Oh, this is also going to be all spoiler free, so don't worry if you have not read these books that I'm going to be talking about. But I've heard a couple of people do these videos. I don't think I've ever watched one, but it seemed like an interesting concept because I am so passionate about my 5-star reads, my 5, 6, 7-star reads, my infinity reads. It's like they're mine and I love them. Have a hard time accepting any criticism about them, but I know that it's good to, you know, hear the perspectives and whatever. I was talking with my friend and a book that I rated so highly, she rated so low, and also vice versa. So that got me interested in thinking like what makes a 5-star book for people and what makes a 1-star book for people. So that's why I decided to film this reading 1-star reviews of my 5-star reads video today. For me, it's like a 5-star feeling. If I have a book that I rate 5 stars, it's about the characters, the plot line, the quotes, the immersibility of a world to get into, but it's also about just like that 5-star feeling, like I know in my gut that it's a 5-star book, you know? I just was curious as to what some of the criticisms were for my favorite books ever, so I can sort of think critically about what makes a 5-star book for me. I just think it's so interesting to see what makes like someone's book taste and what makes someone like a book and someone else not like a book. Okay, you guys, I've gathered all of the books. I feel like I'm holding like my children. I love all these books so much. I'm gonna try really hard to not get offended with these 1-star reads because we're doing this to broaden our perspective. I'll leave like that each video that these books are a part of in the description down below so you can like see live action, sort of like my summary of what they're about. Our first book that we are gonna talk about that I gave a 5-star is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I read this book this year, the beginning of the year, I think in January. I think I listened to it on audiobook primarily and then immediately went out and bought the special edition of the book because I loved it so much. The ending, oh my god, made me cry. I want to reread this. This story was so well done and emotional. The quotes were beautiful and it fleshed out the characters and the storyline well, and I feel like I felt right along with the characters. If we go on Goodreads, this has a rating of overall 4.18, 1.2 million ratings, which is good. It does have some 1-star reviews, so let's see what people say about this book. These people are brutal on these reviews. So many words, so little plot. Lacks a plot? What? There's not enough action. There's too much repetition. Okay, but that's the point. I feel like that's the whole point of this book. If you read this book, you know that the repetition and the monotony of the first bit of the book is like the point of why when she meets this character, it's so revolutionary. I don't agree with that review. I thought it was well done. Okay, she doesn't like the writing. I disagree. I think V.E. Schwab is a beautiful writer. Okay, so I think this is like if she's being more realistic in the sense of if you had so many years to live, then why didn't you try to be more revolutionary with your life? She doesn't like Henry! This man is the stupidest character I ever read about. Excuse me? Okay, so they're saying that he shouldn't have made the deal that he made, and how is that realistic? Who would ever make that deal? I feel like because of the place that he was in when he made that deal, that's why he made it. So maybe people had an issue with the writing style, that it was too repetitive, even though I feel like that was like the point of the book, and that's the thing that I liked about it. It truly was when she met this character, it was like a meteor in a dark night. Like it was like that is why this was so stand out to her. So I feel like that was an important part of the book. And also that not liking Henry, who would make that deal. I think that that's not fair to say that no one would ever make that deal. Like, that's such a stupid deal that Henry made. It's just like a little bit one-sided because like you don't know everyone's experience in their lives and why they might make that deal. I feel like it is hard to get past writing when you don't like the writing. Like, that is hard. Fine. It's just like a different taste, I guess. I think I'm gonna do maybe like 7. Maybe I'll do a part 2 for the rest of my books because I had 13 in mind, but I think I'm just gonna stick with 7 for right now just to see if I like doing this video and if I could do a second part. So we'll see. This is the next book that we're going to be talking about. This massive brick of a book. This is, of course, the last book that is published in the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. I read this year. I think in February is when I finished it. I'm going to predict that people are going to say they don't like that it's slow in the beginning and it's too long and they don't like Nesta. Those are going to be the 3 things that I feel like people are not going to like about this book because those are criticisms that I've heard from like my friends too that have read this book and not liked it. I will present my counter arguments for this book as we read them. This book has overall a 4.47 rating with a almost 1.5 million ratings. So that's pretty good. There is some 1 stars on here, so let's see what it is. Okay, this person actually is different because she says that she loves Nesta. I'm not gonna put a screenshot because it says it contains spoilers, but this person says that she loves Nesta, which is what who this book is about. But she overall loathes Sarah J. Maas's books. Cover 3 cardinal sins this book committed: respect, rebirth, and resand. Okay, they said that Nesta is being disrespected throughout the book. I get what she's coming from. She gets sent off to the war camp because, you know, they're a royal family and she can't be wasting all their money in like bars and everything like that. I feel like that was like their way of giving her a wake-up call. Like, it's not like they didn't try, like the inner circle didn't try to help her heal. They tried and it didn't work, so now they're using tough love. So I feel like that was the change factor, and that's putting her in with Cassian in the war camp and everything like that is what made her change because she needed that push. I feel like it's not too fair to say that she was disrespected throughout this book because she does find really amazing female character best friends and she finds strength in herself. She even admits to herself that she wants to be better, but she has PTSD, which is like a delicate subject. So I could see like people will be upset about like PTSD being handled a different way because I feel like with mental health issues, people are very like stern on how they feel it should be portrayed in books. As for me, I will disclaimer, I have not suffered a PTSD, so I'm not sure this is like an accurate representation of it. I could see if people didn't like the way it was portrayed. Like, okay. I feel like it was the push she needed. Like, Nesta was being really difficult and that is the push she needed. So I don't think they like disrespected her throughout the whole book. They're saying that they don't like Rhysand's portrayal in this book, or they don't like Rhysand period, or how much he's mentioned in this book. That is a issue where we've seen Rhysand through Feyre's eyes throughout the first couple books of ACOTAR. So it does seem like a shift when we see Rhysand being cold towards Nesta in this book because we've only ever seen him be like in love and lovely with Feyre because he was in love with her. Like, I think it was a shock for some people to see Rhysand portrayed this way as like being kind of mean to Nesta and just not the Rhysand that they know and loved from the other ACOTAR books. And I feel like that is the change in perspective, and that's why Cassian has to step up and step in for Nesta, because we have not been able to see Rhysand not in love with Feyre. I can see why people wouldn't like that, but I feel like it's just the change of point of view why we don't see Rhysand like that, because he's not in love with Nesta. Well, I feel like there's a quote, from Vampire Diaries. Exactly. There's this quote that I feel like perfectly displays what I'm saying. Elena's like, Stefan, this isn't you. And then Stefan is like, this is me. You've just never seen me when I'm not in love with you. And I feel like that's the perfect way to encapsulate how Rhysand is portrayed differently in this book than the other books. Another criticism that I'm reading is that they don't like Nesta, because to be honest, Nesta was a piece of work in the first 3 books. She was Feyre's sister. She wasn't there for her. And I do get what they're coming from, because I didn't like Nesta going into this book, but this book made me love Nesta. This person just didn't feel that way. I feel like that's why this book is so thick, because we see her change and we fall in love with her, or I fell in love with her throughout this book, because yes, she was not a good character throughout the rest of the books. And some people didn't want to read book from her perspective. That's like the redemption story, you know? I love a good redemption arc. So, alright, that's all I'm gonna say about A Court of Silver Flames. I feel like because ACOTAR is such like a massive world, people have such intense opinions of it. And like more so like the characters and how the characters are portrayed, because people are invested and involved and love these characters, so they have a lot stronger opinions on how they're portrayed in books. I think that's why we saw more like reflections of why people didn't like the characters in this book than like the writing, like we saw in like Addie LaRue, for example. So now let's read our third book. I think I'm gonna choose... I'm gonna be so sad reading these reviews because Fourth Wing. I'm gonna do Fourth Wing next. So actually, Onyx Storm is coming out, and I have a video recently that I posted of me reading Iron Flame. But Fourth Wing, this was my absolute favorite book since I've read it. Like, I think about this world all the time. It's just this book blew up and I completely understand the hype. I have a video also of me reading this book for the first time. If you want to see that, I'll leave that below too. Like, I explain more in that video why I love this book so much, but this book is my life. I am obsessed with this book. Okay, 4.57 overall rating, 2.15 million ratings overall. Person that rated it 25 days ago. Ah! Okay, so this person says, the story didn't hook her from the beginning at all, and she didn't like the writing style. And she says she was only interested when the dragons were involved, otherwise she wasn't interested in the story at all. I think that's just a difference in opinion of what you like in books. Like, I feel like that's a very normal thing people disagree on, is do they like the magic system? Do they like characters? Do they like our main character? Do they like the school setting? Like, it's a lot of things that go into this that were like perfect for me, but some people don't like books like that, so that's why they didn't rate it as highly. Okay, now she's talking about Xaden. So this person says that she doesn't like Xaden as a male main character, and I couldn't disagree more. I think he's a great male main character. The fact that he's like this black sheep when we start out, and then realizing that he's so much more than we thought. There's more to his story, and if you liked the whole Draco story of people are talking about, if you're on Harry Potter TikTok, Draco, he had such a potential to be redeemed and his story should have been more explored and all that stuff. And I feel like Xaden is a Draco type character where it's like he was a good person born in bad circumstances that changed his worldview, but I feel like Xaden isn't cruel. Like, Draco is mean and Xaden isn't, so I feel like Xaden was the perfect dark horse male main character. I'm obsessed with him. And she doesn't like the plot line, which is like, you know, you can't really change someone's mind if they don't like the plot line of the whole entire book, then like they're not gonna like the book. Okay, so she says the plot was vague and not descriptive enough. It wasn't as fleshed out as it should have been. I disagree with that. I feel like I mean, maybe it's also because I read a lot of fantasy books, but I think that this world building was simple enough to understand, but she didn't like over explain it and over involve different types of things in this book because she wanted it to be easy to understand. I feel like that was like a plus for the book, where it's not a super complicated world building, and that's why this book got so popular for non-fantasy readers, because it was an easy world to get into. But this person says it's not fleshed out enough. She said that Xaden is a discount resand. Oh, don't come for my boy. I have seen that review also a lot, where Xaden was a discount resand, like Walmart version of resand, like the Shadow King or whatever, and he had the same type of powers as Resand did in ACOTAR, and he was just like a knockoff Resand. I feel like that's incorrect, because yes, Resand does have his own backstory, but Xaden has his own entire backstory that really doesn't relate to Resand at all. And I think it is just that the Shadow love interest is just like really popular right now, and I think in this book it worked. I mean, maybe I'm just a sucker for the Shadow male main character type trope, but I eat it up every time. Alright, that's all I can handle for Fourth Wing. And it seemed like people mainly had issues with, they didn't like the writing style, they think it was too simplistic, they didn't like the plot, they think it was too simplistic, the world building was too simplistic, they didn't like the main characters, and it's like, it does have that like, oh, she's special type vibe to it, but that's how you have an interesting story. Like, a lot of fantasy books are like, this person's special for some reason. It's the same with Feyre and ACOTAR. She's special because like you find out at the end of ACOTAR why she's special. You can't really get away from that if you want a really a good high stakes fantasy. I said 7 books, but I think I'm gonna actually stop at 5 because I clearly have a lot of opinions about my books. We talked about all fantasies. So we're gonna go with a romance. We're gonna do Happy Place by Emily Henry. I read it in June 2023. I love this book. It talked about issues that in like your 20s to 30s you're dealing with, where it's like it talks about friendship breakups, it talks about friendship strains, the semantics and the outlines of your lives change and you start to grow apart from them, or you can grow closer to them, and just like navigating that. And I feel like Emily Henry, of course, writes it so beautifully, and I loved the second chance romance in this. Harriet, I feel like, was one of the most relatable characters I've ever seen in a romance book. So I just had nothing but good things to say about this one. Let's see what bad things people have to say about this one. Why am I doing this video? Okay, so this person says she thinks that romance as a main plot isn't her genre. Which, you know, if you don't like romance, it's a romance book. Like, then yeah, you're not gonna like this book. That's just obvious. The next one is they think that the characters were flat and boring. She hates the miscommunication trope, which that is like a very common thing that I'm seeing in these 1-star reviews. Some people don't like the miscommunication trope because sometimes it is frustrating when you say like, just talk to each other, you're adults, like just talk to each other. For me, I think it was done well in this book though, like where it was like there were a lot of other things going on in the friendship group where I wasn't focused so much on like the fact that they were miscommunicating, and it didn't like super bother me, but this person said that it bothers her. It's brutal. She doesn't like Win in this book. That is, I'm not gonna screenshot it because there was a lot of curse words in this. But she doesn't like Win, and she doesn't like the big reveal for why Win was being. If you really were together for 8 years or however long you were together, you should know each other better than this and know what triggers the other person. Which, again, I feel like that's just like, there's different relationships out there, and if you don't like that, then you don't like that. She thinks that Harriet didn't make good choices. Okay, overall people have issues with, they don't like the characters and they don't like the miscommunication, which that is the characters are obviously, if you don't like the characters, then it's gonna be a hard read for you, but I just happen to love them and relate to them so much. And the miscommunication trope, like, yeah, that is a very like 50-50 thing where it's like, I hate miscommunication too. This is a book where I feel like they did it well and I loved it. It's just interesting to read these 5-star reads, these like 1-star reviews of the 5-star books, because it's like, I do understand what most of these people are saying, like why they don't like it. It's just so interesting to see our different book tastes. The last book we're gonna talk about is gonna be another romance. This one I am gonna find really hard to accept any criticism on. This one is gonna be real tricky for me. I'm gonna try to say controlled. We're gonna talk about Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. If you've been on my channel for even a second, you probably know that I am obsessed with Magnolia Parks. I have videos of me reading all the Magnolia Parks books. I love them so much. I am gonna predict that people are not gonna like that they think the relationship between BJ and Magnolia is toxic and they don't like the flowery writing. That's what I'm gonna predict, because those are other criticisms that I've heard from this book. This is the 3rd book in the Magnolia Parks universe. It has an overall 4.28 rating on Goodreads, and it has almost 67,000 ratings. That's actually not as many as I thought it was. 443 1-star reviews. This first one says there's no reason for this to be so long. They just should have gone to therapy. Like, yes, it's not your typical relationship. It's not your typical romance. If you're going into this book thinking it's gonna be a typical flowery romance, you will be disappointed, because there is so much miscommunication in this book. So many things where you think that the characters are finally gonna do something right by each other. Something happens and they mess it up again. And it's so frustrating, but I feel like that it invested me so much more in the book that I feel like it added so much more for me. I liked it. I feel like it was necessary. It got me more invested in the characters. So, okay, yeah, I'm right. A lot of these, oh my god. Yes, people are saying that they don't like toxicity and miscommunication. Okay, so they don't like the writing, which this is like basically how I feel. This is exactly what I thought, that they don't like the characters, they think it's toxic, they don't like the miscommunication. And like there's run-on sentences, but I think it's also just like that's how Jessa Hastings writes. Like some people really don't like how Jessa Hastings writes. I am one of the people that love how Jessa Hastings writes. Yes, there are some run-on sentences. If you read Into the Dark, you will understand more why. And I feel like reading Into the Dark really made me appreciate these books so much more, because because it's just like I understand why. This is a stream of consciousness writing. Like she writes in Magnolia and BJ's stream of consciousness, and the things that you find out in Into the Dark, it makes so much sense why she writes it in like those run-on sentences, like distractions and stuff like that. I feel like I love her writing, but if you don't like the writing, then like yeah, you won't like the book because it is a very atypical way of writing that I feel like Jessa Hastings does. How can you deny that these quotes are the most beautiful quotes you've ever seen in your entire life? How can you deny that these are not the most beautiful quotes that you've ever seen in your entire life? Because they are. Like, I think about these quotes all the time. I think about all the quotes in all the books all the time. I'm obsessed with them. I love the writing. It's just like heartbreaking throughout the book, but I think like I just love if books can make me feel something. These books have made me cry, they made me laugh, they made me frustrated. Like these books have made me feel so much. So I think that is all that I can handle for today. These are the 5 books that we've talked about in this video that we read 1-star reviews on my 5-star books. It's interesting to read because I like hearing other perspectives of what people like in books, and I feel like this video proves to us that reading is such a subjective enjoyment, such a subjective hobby, where we can't get mad at people for not agreeing with us because everyone's tastes are different, and reading's so personal. That's why I love reading so much. I just feel like it's interesting to see the other side of how people feel about these books. Like the things that people hate about these books, I love about these books, and it's just interesting to see how different people's brains work, I guess, when we're reading. So this is a kind of random video. It was fun. I don't know if I want to do another one because I got kind of passionate about some of these books. I do have many more 5 stars that I can talk about, possibly another day. That is all we're gonna do for today. Let me know if these are your 5 stars or any arguments that you have for or against a 5-star rating. I just think it's so interesting to see other people's perspectives. That is gonna be it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!